Hey, it's Mega, aka the Art Messiah, here to save you from your art sins. Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about how you can create dynamic poses for your comic book, or if you're just creating cool art pieces that you want to post on Instagram, Twitter, yada yada, whatever the case may be. So, get your pen, get your paper, and let's get right to it. So, how to come up with dynamic poses. There's no wrong or right way, but today I'm going to give you two distinct methods of going about coming up with dynamic poses. So method number one, this is the easiest way. This is the beginner way. This is the steady steel stylized way of approaching dynamic poses. Okay, in this method, you actually use references and you don't draw from imagination. So method number one is reference. Method number two will be imagination. Method number one, when you're using reference, where can you go for reference? So I asked a question on my Instagram. Follow me at Art Messiah. And I got a lot of different responses, but the question was, how do you come up with poses to draw? And I'll run through the different responses I got. So, Animate T. Dot said, I use photo reference. Google dynamic pose / photography. A user named Shock STR Neo said boxes I can't explain more, wish I could. So I'm guessing he's kind of using building blocks. Art is just for fun. Said usually by looking at other people's posts on Instagram or Pinterest, but sometimes it just comes. And then the last user, Sobelis, and excuse me for pronouncing any of these names wrong, said, I watch dance / sports videos, pause at random times, and draw that. So all the responses that I got, no one mentioned that they do from imagination, and that's true. A lot of artists do pull from real life references, and that's actually the best place to start to get comfortable with drawing dynamically. So if you look at the screen, you will see that I did what they suggested, okay? So I paid a person online to do a bunch of goofy poses and to take pictures while doing that and to send it to me. So I thought it would be fun to kind of kill two birds with one stone. If you guys have heard of a person on YouTube called Ethan Becker, he's running a challenge right now, and basically he calls it the photo reference challenge. You tag him, and then what you do is you base a drawing off a photo reference. So what I'm going to be doing is completing that challenge while also showing you guys two different ways to come up with dynamic poses for your comic story or your artwork. So I got the photo references, and in this challenge they had to be two characters, two people kind of interacting with each other. I just said, hey actor, you pretend like you're two people and I'm going to kind of splice it together. So what you are seeing in front of you is just that. You're seeing photo reference. So let's come up with a dynamic pose based on a photo reference. So for those of you that are doing this, there's a few things that I want you to get in the habit of doing. Okay, so when you take your photo reference, I want you to find the line of action. The line of action is basically where the motion is flowing. So in this first one, the motion is flowing like a Nike swoosh. It's starting up here and it's traveling through the leg and it's kicking this person over here. So that is your what's called line of action. Okay? So once you've established your line of action, you want to really push this line of action. You want to make it as clear as possible. As an artist, you're really pushing for clarity and design and putting your spin on it. So when I look at this pose, I say, hey, that's a cool pose, but we can make it better. And this is what I'm seeing what we could do. Okay, so here's a line of action. You see how this leg is bent like this in the original photo? Because of the line of action, and the line of action is straight, we're actually just going to make that leg straight. So the next thing you do when you're creating dynamic poses is you're really pushing the line of action. So let's go ahead and kind of demonstrate that. So we come in here and we draw this leg, and instead of doing a bent shape, and this is what I'm going to do first actually. So instead of doing this bent shape, we're just going to make it a single line. And when you're doing dynamic poses, I want you guys to start off with a stick figure. So let me show you what a stick figure looks like. It's a line for the leg, it's a little dot for the knee, a triangle for the foot, a line for the direction of the hips, a line for the direction of the shoulders, and the line of action kind of follows through your spine and through the leg that is doing the action. Okay? So the other leg, you drop down a line. We're creating a stick figure right now because we're trying to understand the pose, and we're trying to understand what's kind of happening here. Okay, so put little dots for the shoulders. Top. Okay. And this head, we want to put it into the line of action. So we're going to actually place the head a little bit more forward this time. Okay. And this is getting some foreshortening for the hands. Just use circles. So small circle, big circle. See that foreshortening happening there? Okay. So that is the first stage of creating a dynamic pose. You want to create a skeleton. Now, on this skeleton, you pretty much want to do what's called a figure drawing, in which you're adding a little bit of flesh, you're adding the meat, the muscles, you're starting to add anatomy. And for those of you guys that are out there that are like, man, I'm not ready for this, I can't do this quite yet, I don't know anatomy yet, it's okay. Start off with the skeleton and just keep on working through the stages. And once you get to something that you don't know, then learn it on the spot. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. We just created this skeleton. We're going to drop the opacity down to say about right there. And we're going to take this and... Actually, you know what I'm going to do to make this clear for you guys? I'm going to make that a separate color. I'm going to make it a red color so that you guys can see these different layers that I am slowly building up. Okay? Alright, so there's that first layer. We're starting to develop this pose even more and more. Okay? So we have the line of the action, we have the skeleton. That's really what's showing us what the dynamic pose is going to be. Now, I want you guys to be kind of loose in terms of developing the volume. And I want you to draw with circles and ovals. Now, Ethan Becker, if you're listening to this, I doubt it, but if you are, yeah, use circles and ovals. He made a video saying you shouldn't use circles and ovals, but let me explain. Circles and ovals, the reason you're using those is because they represent a sphere, and the sphere has volume, and the reason that we're using volume right now is because we're trying to get in the anatomy, okay? So we'll get to Ethan Becker's point of not using circles and ovals, but for now, I want you to use circles and ovals to represent the different parts in the body, and we're going to go over and not use those circles, but right now we're just building up some form. So you take the torso and you represent that as a circle. Okay, you take the pelvis area, you represent it as a circle, and you take this leg, it's an oval. Okay, because a circle is being stretched, you know, another oval, and an oval down here, and you don't really ever draw like these like sidelines to try to get that volume, and I'll kind of explain why right now. Is because really the torso and the hips, so you know, torso and then hips, right? If you want to show twisting such as this, then these lines on the side are just going to follow that twisting. Pretty much you show the twist by taking two beans and you kind of imagine this sack kind of going like this, and you're showing the overlap using this method to really demonstrate how something is twisting. Okay, and personally what I like to use for the torso, instead of this bean method, I use this, let's say, box method, and I pretty much show the angle of the boxes. You know, say this is the pelvis, this is the torso, and you know, say the curvature is this way. Well, no, let's actually demonstrate some kind of like twisting so I can really explain this a little bit better. Okay, so say, I don't know, this pose is not really going to work out that way, but say it's a similar kind of twisting, right? Let's kind of redraw this a little bit. Say it's a similar kind of twisting as that bean, right? And it's starting like in this plane and then coming to this plane. Okay, so the reason I like this box better is because it represents the body as planes. And honestly, when I think about the front of the body, I think of that as a plane, and then your back, I think of that as a plane. I don't think of it as this kind of circular object. So I like being able to see this side plane very clearly. Because then you can start to show how that side plane is actually being like twisted, right? And now this is where it's gonna get like a little bit weird because I'm um, demonstrating in a different kind of way. But you can imagine this box kind of twisting, and what's great about that is that it kind of helps you place a lot of the features and anatomy onto it. So let's go ahead and continue with this dynamic pose and adding in these ovals here and there. And then this, it was an oval, but because of the foreshortening, it actually becomes a circle. And then your hand also becomes a circle, okay? And so the great thing about taking photo reference is that you can kind of already see foreshortening, but when you're creating dynamic poses, we're trying to push that foreshortening as much as possible. So that hand really becomes really big, almost as big as we can make it be, because that's coming towards us. And this hand that's coming back, we're going to make that really puny, okay? So, um, yeah, there you kind of have it. Let's go ahead at this point and make what I'm doing just a little bit bigger so we can start to get into the next part of creating dynamic poses. Now, I know this is going to be a long video, guys, and that's because there's just so much to cover when it comes to creating dynamic poses. It's really something you have to practice a lot. You have to know figure drawing, you have to know anatomy, you have to know perspective. Okay, so I'm just trying to show you guys how to combine this all. And you have to do this in steps. You might look at a finished illustration and be like, wow, that's a great dynamic pose, you know, and you think they just drew it like that, but most artists go through these different stages and steps. They start with a skeleton, then they start moving more into kind of like a mannequin, and then they flesh out the details. So I'm going to move all the way into the mannequin and not really flesh out the details because clothing and hair is kind of a different video altogether. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a group. We're just going to put all these layers into it. And then we can transform this group and make it bigger so that we can start to see a little bit more of what we're doing. Let's go ahead and take this, and we're just going to kind of stretch it out. And at this point, you don't need the photo reference anymore. Okay? You do not need that photo reference. And we're going to blow that up nice and large. Perfect. My computer is really getting slow because I'm streaming, plus I'm drawing, and it typically gets a little bit slower now. But anyways, hopefully that's a bit bigger so you guys can more or less see better what I'm talking about. And what we're going to do is we're just going to take that off. We're going to take this off. So look how our pose is slowly starting to come together. We're just going to drop that opacity down. And now we're going to go in, and we have the form built up. And now this is the point which I was talking about in terms of what Ethan Becker is talking about. Now he says draw triangles, not circles. And the reason he says this is because you want to make a decision. You want to make a decision on the form, and you want to make a decision on the clarity of how things are turning and how things are fitting into perspective. So that's why he was saying that. And I still believe that using circles and ovals is just a great way to just very quickly get the volume down so that you can start to understand that, hey, this torso has volume. It's not just, you know, a 2D flat piece of paper. This thing has some roundness. So imagine this ball right here that we drew. Imagine that this is actually a sphere, right? You can add some shading here. So that helps you kind of understand the volume of the shape we're creating. Okay? So there's a couple things that I'm going to point out very quickly, and that is just some key points in anatomy. Now, this circle right here that we drew, the reason I drew it as a circle is because you have what is called a rib cage, and looking straight on, it kind of looks something like that, something like this. It has that volume of a sphere, but this little bottom section is kind of cut out, and this is your rib cage, and that's an important landmark when you're drawing figures. Okay, so the center line of the circle is kind of coming down like this, right? The line of action is still flowing through here. It's going to go ahead and bump up the flow a little bit so we can get a little bit darker lines. Okay, so we're using that flow. Now, what I said before is, you know, we drew a circle. You can kind of put in the sides a little bit so you can start to understand how things are twisting. But right now, we're going to do the gesture. We're going to do the figure drawing. And in this case, we're not focused on anatomy. That's going to be the very last step. And so what we're doing now is figure drawing. This is very important in getting very dynamic poses. So let's go ahead and kind of give that a shot. If my computer will be quick enough. So you are utilizing this line of action right here. If my computer will work. Sorry, I can make this demo much quicker and much better if this was kind of working. And here's the flow of this leg, and here's the flow of this one. Okay, and I'm fixing some proportions as we go. and here's this kind of coming down into this. I realized that, you know, we really want to show the crunch of this top part really coming forward. So I really want to push this torso shape outwards, and I really want to show that this side is compressing and this side is expanding. And you can see that all over in all different kinds of forms, is that one side is going to pinch and the other side is going to expand. So coming in and drawing very loosely, and try not to draw too many lines. I am right now because my Photoshop is running really slow. But try to keep it really simple in terms of how many lines you are drawing, and just get the major shapes still, okay? Major shapes with the form that you have established at this point. Okay, so these shoulders, we want these to be high up. We want the face to be kind of tucked in. So we're just going to draw the head as a circle for right now, just to get the placement of it. And I don't like that actually, which is fine. And that's the thing about creating dynamic poses, is that you'll be doing a lot of erasing. Okay? So anyways, we're kind of coming through. We're adding in the shoulders, the back. Um, we're gonna throw in the back right here. And notice how I am using kind of these more, let's say, triangular shapes, right? Triangular shape right there. These dominant triangles. Try to use these shapes in your design, and you'll start to notice that you're making more decisions, and your line work will be more confident, and it's just going to overall look better. So get into a habit of doing that. And this is running so slow. Keep on going in and pushing the design shape and pushing the design language, okay? Showing that foreshortening in this fist up here, and that it's, you know, almost the size of his face even, and then, you know, in the background showing how it's so much smaller, right? And we're gonna draw the back, and then this is where his neck sits, because collarbone comes in like this, and then we just have to draw in the head, which will also demonstrate a little bit of foreshortening. It's not really working out the way I wanted it to work out, but let's go ahead and add in the foot back here, and to really emphasize that the flow of motion is coming up this way, all the way up to the front. Okay? And yeah, there you kind of have it. You can kind of take away that construction lines that we made. But as you can see, you can start to see the pose really come to life now, and really kind of feel dynamic, and you can start to feel some of that action going on. And yeah, so that's kind of how you break down photo reference. You know, you can find reference anywhere and everywhere. always be paying attention. And as an artist, you're using the reference, but you're changing it. You're making it more clear. You're making sure that it's dynamic looking and that you're focused in on design, what looks good, okay? You want to focus in on what looks good. So that is method number one. I realize this video is already getting kind of long, so we're going to save method number two for a later video. But hopefully this helps you guys get started in drawing dynamic poses. Don't feel bad about finding reference and starting off your drawing over it, and finding that line of action, but then using your imagination and your creativity and your design sense to create a truly dynamic pose. And yeah, throw that into your comic, throw that into your artwork. Just remember to kind of exaggerate and stylize and bring out the important aspects of the pose, and you're going to create some really cool artwork, and I can't wait to see it. So let me know what you guys think of this video. If you learned anything new, please let me know in the comment section down below. And tell me, what is your preferred method of creating dynamic poses? I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say. And thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I'll be back with another video. And until then, peace and love. Don't forget to like and subscribe.